A new global crisis is unfolding, one that could rival the pandemic in scale. The trade war between the United States and China has returned with unprecedented force. Donald Trump has signed an executive order imposing 100% tariffs on all Chinese goods starting November 1st. These tariffs will affect everything, from electronics and solar panels to electric vehicles and medical equipment. Officially, this move is in response to China's restrictions on rare earth mineral exports, but in reality, it marks the beginning of a new economic war. Trump declared that if China wants to play hard, America is ready. Within hours, his words sent shockwaves through the global markets. Asian stock exchanges tumbled, and Beijing immediately struck back. China's Ministry of Commerce announced that it would take necessary countermeasures to defend its national interests and ensure global supply stability. According to the South China Morning Post, China is preparing to restrict the export of critical minerals such as lithium, neodymium, and praseodymium, resources that are absolutely essential for producing semiconductors, batteries, and electric vehicle motors. These minerals are the lifeblood of modern industry, and China controls nearly 90% of their global processing. For the first time in years, Beijing is using its resources not just as an economic asset, but as a geopolitical weapon. Without these Chinese minerals, production lines at major companies like Tesla, Apple, Intel, and Samsung could grind to a halt. The White House knows the risks but remains firm. Trump's strategy is clear: to end America's dependence on China and shift global manufacturing to countries like India, Vietnam, and Mexico. In Washington, this is being described as a new strategy of economic encirclement. But Beijing views it as an attempt to destabilize its economy from within. Reports from Nikkei Asia suggest that Chinese think tanks have already presented President Xi Jinping with 3 response plans. The first involves gradually selling off U.S. Treasury bonds worth more than $770 billion. The second focuses on restricting technological exports to American defense and space industries. And the third plan is more strategic, expanding China's military presence in the South China Sea and conducting exercises near Taiwan and Guam. For the United States, these plans amount to an economic blitzkrieg. The Pentagon has begun increasing intelligence operations and deploying additional naval ships to the Sea of Japan. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reports growing anxiety within Washington about America's dependence on Chinese minerals. A leaked report from the Department of Energy warns that the U.S. would run out of rare earth metals within 7 months if China completely halted exports. Beijing, however, is treading carefully. Its economy still depends heavily on exports, and a global panic could backfire. But the tone inside China is changing fast. According to Reuters, Xi Jinping told senior officials in a closed meeting that if the U.S. tries to strangle China's economy, then China must show that it can strangle America with technology. Those words were reportedly met with applause among the country's military and political elites. In response, the U.S. administration has launched a $400 billion program to achieve technological independence. The plan includes new semiconductor plants in Arizona and Ohio, rare metal extraction projects in Nevada, and even the creation of a national lithium reserve. However, experts at CNBC warn that these initiatives will take at least 3 to 5 years to complete. While the trade war is already accelerating, Europe too is feeling the pressure. Germany's automobile industry, which relies heavily on Chinese components, is warning that if the flow of lithium and magnesium stops, the European economy could enter a recession by spring. Inside China, the government is taking steps to adapt. State media have launched the slogan "Made in China for China," signaling a push for self-reliance. Over 1 trillion yuan has been allocated to boost domestic microelectronics production and build new rare metal processing facilities. But the United States still holds some powerful cards. Trump is reportedly considering a total ban on exporting dual-use technologies to China, including artificial intelligence systems, quantum processors, and military-grade simulation tools. According to Politico, a special task force in the White House is already studying the feasibility of such a ban. An action analysts say could be as disruptive as the oil crisis of the 1970s. Analysts now warn that the world is moving toward a new Cold War, one divided into 2 competing economic blocs. One would form around the United States, the other around China. Each side would build its own system of technology, currency, and logistics. The Economist writes that if this trade war continues for even a year, globalization as we know it will cease to exist. Global companies are already creating dual supply chains, one for the US and one for China, increasing costs, reducing efficiency, and fragmenting the world economy. The key question is who can hold out longer? China's growth is slowing, but the US is facing its own economic challenges. Former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers said in an interview that this is a war with no winners, only losers. Still, Trump believes America's innovation and resilience will allow it to outlast China's state-controlled system. Meanwhile, China is forging stronger ties with Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the BRICS nations to build trade routes and financial systems that bypass the US dollar. According to RTS Global Monitor, over 30 countries are now willing to use the yuan or ruble for oil and gas transactions, a direct challenge to US financial dominance. And yet, despite all the tension, trade between the US and China continues. Cargo ships still move, contracts are still signed, and global markets continue to function. But beneath this calm surface lies a growing distrust. There's a chill in the air that hasn't been felt since the Cold War. And within that chill, a new era is being born. An era where geopolitics, technology, and natural resources are tightly woven together, and where the next great conflict may not be fought with weapons, but with tariffs, chips, and minerals.